got the skepticism breaking it down. He's got the answers that are waiting to be found. We mix it all up in a quantum machine, the craziest duo that you've ever seen. Oh, it's the skeptic and the disciple. Yeah, we keep it moving, yeah, we keep it vital. Faith and logic and funny business. Welcome to the show.
Welcome to the Skeptic and the Disciple. I'm Mike Litman, the Quantum Disciple, and this is my partner in crime, Megan.
Partner in crime. Hi, guys.
All right. Well, so today we have a pretty interesting topic that I think we all struggle with, but it's also something I think gets a little bit misconstrued when we see it in the Bible. And so we're going back to the 10 Commandments.
Ooh.
And, there's a little bit of a different opinion on what the order of the commandments are, but usually the first commandment is, thou shalt have no other gods other than me. So we should only have that one. Well, what do you think that means? What do you think it means to not have other gods other than
So
God?
let's put it in today's terms. So that's like the people who worship Trump like a god,
Okay.
not worship people as if they're godlike. I don't know.
Okay. So let's just think about our goals in life. So when people think, hey, what does it mean to be successful? So when you're trying to assess, have I reached my potential? Am I successful? What are the elements you use to try to measure that? How do you determine whether you're successful or not successful? What are the elements that you might look at to judge yourself?
I feel like most people, if you're looking at success, like money, obviously, is a huge one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, did you accomplish anything? Like, even if it's just accomplishing things in your life, did you accomplish anything?
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you feel like a failure if you haven't, I guess.
So everything could kind of be abstracted down to like a currency, right? We
Yeah.
measure things in terms of currencies. I think obviously, like you said, the big one's money.
Mhm.
So many people sit there and they just chase the dollar. We all do it. I've done it. You've done. We've all done it. This is not you're really bad because you want to make more money. But what's enough money? At what point would you be able to say, okay, I've made enough. I have enough money. I'm content with what I make. What would that look like?
I guess for me personally, I know I'm never going to be rich. That much I know. For me, I would be happy just being comfortable.
Well, what
and
does that
not-
mean?
I mean, to have a house, to have my bills paid, to not have to worry if I wanted to buy something, I could buy something. Obviously, I'm never going to be the type that's going to be able to go on 4 cruises a year or stuff like that. I just want
Well, why?
comfort.
Why do you assume that that's the case, that so you see something like that's something I've seen other people attain, whether that's good or not, we're going to get to that. But, why do you automatically assume, like you said a few minutes ago, you said, well, I know I'm never going to be rich. Well, how do you know that? Your circumstances up to this point have, kicked you when you're down, but lots of people, even you mentioned Trump. I mean, Trump's declared bankruptcy multiple times and rebuilt himself. I mean, love or hate the guy. I mean, I'm not a fan. I'm a conservative, so I guess I'm supposed to be a Republican, but I'm certainly not a fan of him, and certainly not this week with him posting pictures of him as Jesus. I mean, this guy's getting
Did he
ridiculous,
really?
but oh my gosh, it's terrible. We'll talk about it probably. But in any case, love or hate the guy, I mean, the guy is resilient. He's been kicked, he's been bankrupt, he's rebuilt. I think it happened a second time. He rebuilt again. He lost a presidential election. Forget about all the controversy about that, but he came back and won the next one. I mean, say what you want about the guy, but he's resilient.
Me,
then,
I don't have thick enough skin.
To what?
I
To
don't
be
know.
resilient?
Yeah,
To be resilient.
pretty much. I don't have thick skin.
Well, that's okay. But, but we all chase the dollar for various reasons. But even when you were saying, what does it mean to be comfortable? You said, oh, you want a house. Well, what kind of house? I mean, what does it mean for you to be comfortable? Is
Not
it
in an apartment for the rest of my life.
okay? Well, so that's a starting point. So you'd like to have a house that you're earning some kind of equity towards, like you're kind
Right.
of building up your stuff. I mean, well, how nice of a house?
It doesn't need to be perfect. I can remodel stuff. I can fix things. And I mean, I used to work in the building industry. So it's like, I know that a lot of that stuff you can put new flooring in later, you can put new cabinets in later, you can do all of the cosmetic stuff later too. It's like just to
Oh,
when you're
what about neighborhood? What about where the house is located? What about there's all sorts of variables that go into, being successful, being comfortable. And it's one of those things I feel like we're always chasing something. I'm always chasing something. Yet, how do you know that you won that race?
right.
When you look at the Olympics, when Usain Bolt, I used him in one of my quantum lectures, not, kind of recently about who would win in a race, me or Usain Bolt.
The one at the nursing home?
Funny. This is, well, hey, look, we're going to get off topic on this. It
Like
actually
always.
is the presentation I was going to give at the nursing home. So the previous time I'd given my presentation on quantum computing to an audience, I have a slide on there that kind of talks about how quantum algorithms actually work. Doesn't matter, but on that slide I have a picture of Usain Bolt, fastest man, perhaps who's ever lived, yada yada yada, and then me, and I think I'm wearing a red beret and holding like a way overfilled glass of wine, which is my natural state. And as you mentioned, did you say I only go on 4 cruises a year?
You
Is
go
that what
on
you
more than
accused me
that,
of?
but
Yeah, I do. Yeah, we go on more
yeah.
than that.
How
Um,
many?
6 to 8 depends, and it also depends how you measure it, because we usually try to go, like, we leave again here at the beginning of May for 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so just in a couple weeks we ship back off. What's actually funny, and this is like a first world problem, is when you're on a cruise, like lots of people save up and go on this family vacation and they go once every decade or something like that. We're going 6 to 8 times a year, so it's like first world problems where we're complaining about things that, why is this even important? Or
You don't even
we're
get off the cruise ship. To you, it does not even matter the destination that the cruise goes because
Well,
you don't
right.
even get off.
That's absolutely true. It's whatever the tabby wants to do.
Oh, you let her pick the destination even though you don't get off the
She
ship?
doesn't care about the destination. We pick the ship and the port.
Okay.
So we decide, okay, and we usually try to do newer ships. Our main cruise line is Celebrity, but we've been on all the cruise lines. We do Princess pretty often as well. But we pick the newer ship and then we say, okay, well, we want to try that ship for X, Y, or Z reasons, new technology, just see innovation and stuff, whatever. Then we usually go out of one of the ports, either Port Canaveral, which you fly into Orlando, Port Everglades, which is Fort Lauderdale, or the Port of Miami, which is Miami. That's the worst port to go out of, is Miami. Miami's just too hustle and bustly of a town. The other two are fine.
Okay.
So we were talking about the quantum thing. So anyways, I had me and Usain Bolt in my natural state. I have this glass of wine or whatever. But we were talking about, I asked the students, well, who would win in a race, me versus Usain Bolt? And obviously this isn't rocket science, right? but we were doing it from a quantum perspective. I was talking about a algorithm type where you have this oracle and the oracle knows the answer and you turn things up or down or whatever in quantum, but it's kind of gives you the ha thing because it's Litman versus Usain Bolt, so it's a good icebreaker for the slide. Well, anyway, so I show up to this I was given the same presentation to I guess it's a assisted living type place. They have a relationship with Concordia, so they bring speakers in for their platinum series or whatever they call it. So I was a speaker. They got to pick the topic. So I said, hey, I thought maybe they want to hear stuff on AI or whatever. No, they wanted quantum computing. so I show up. I've given this presentation multiple times. Didn't even think about it. Well, recently I had written some software on my computer to to clean up the hard drive and stuff like that. Rather than spending $5 for the one off the Mac App Store, I just wrote my own,
Of
as one
course.
does. Yeah, but apparently mine, well, I think this was more of user error. So on the screen where it shows you all the big files that you have on your computer, because I was running out of disk space on the main drive, it shows you the largest files first or whatever. Well, the presentation I give, since sometimes you're at places and the internet doesn't cooperate or whatever, I brought everything local. So it was like a 13 gigabyte presentation because I had all this multimedia that was local. Well, I must have considered that to be some giant file I didn't need anymore, so I deleted it.
Oh god, this gives me PTSD.
So, so I show up, I'm like setting up. I show up like 4 minutes before the presentation is supposed to start. I set up, I go to double click on the PowerPoint presentation, file not found. And of course, there's no internet connection in this place. So I'm using my hotspot. I got 1 bar of LTE. I somehow was able to get the YouTube video I usually use for this thing called the double slit experiment. It's a cartoon thing I like to use because it explains it in a very easy to understand thing with good visuals. But I was able
What
to
are
get that
people in the
buffering.
nursing home doing with quantum computing?
I'll tell you what, you had some really sharp. I mean, some of these people, yeah, just because they're old doesn't mean they weren't previously physicists or whatever. It was they had some good questions. And I moved it into AI and talked about some things because quantum and AI are very interrelated. So I moved it into that. It ended up being a good presentation and when all was said and done, but yeah, things were sketched there. But like you said, imagine if I was somebody fresh out of school, you're given this thing and so I've been speaking in front of audiences for almost 30 years. So I was able to fall back on that experience and wing it as if this was the whole plan to begin with. But
Right.
man, that would have sucked if when I first started teaching years and years, I couldn't I would have an hour-long class and I would only be able to go 30 minutes. I'd run out of material. You just got to figure out your own way of presenting stuff. Now, as you know, I meander for a month.
No kidding.
I got to set alarms in my classes. This morning I taught coding 2, and I have to set an alarm. The class starts at 8:05 a.m., and I set an alarm for 9:20 so it snaps me out of it when class is over.
That is
'Cause I'll just keep,
hilarious.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what I have to do every podcast. Usually
I know,
it's about 10 minutes over minimum, everyone.
but I have the ums, or have I gotten
Mhm.
better with the ums?
No,
Oh, it's
no,
bad, still bad?
no,
Okay. Well,
bad. Mhm. But it cuts us down to the time that we need to be at, so it works.
That's true. All right. So anyways, I don't know how we zigged onto that, but in any case, we're talking about chasing the dollar. We're talking about cruises and all
And 10
sorts of stuff.
Commandments and
Yeah. Well, but so the idea is, no other gods other than me isn't necessarily talking about worshiping a person or it's talking about us putting other things ahead of God. It could be a person, use the example of Trump, and I'm actually sure, it's kind of an interesting example because
the reason I gave the example is because you see so many people, especially with like all the controversy and all the stuff that's gone on in the past few years, where it's like you could take 2 best friends and one person says something about Trump and the other person is like, Trump is the best thing in the world. And now they're no longer friends. Like they are
yeah.
putting Trump above a friendship, above relationships, above all
Mm-hmm.
of these things.
Yeah, and obviously, people have been fighting over politics for years and years and years, and nobody is going to push back against the idea that we have a president who is polarizing. Now, like I've said multiple times, I don't really like the guy, but um so let's take like the MAGA core is his main base. Most of these people are Christians. They look at the other side, the Democrats, as being supportive of things that are not Christian, things that are on the website, the LGBT community, things like that, Look, I don't hate any of these people, but if we're talking about what does the Bible say about this, it doesn't align with making accommodations for a lot of those lifestyles. So the point is that if you have a strong Christian base that follows Trump, part of that is because they don't want to follow the other side. And Trump has said a lot of the things that's important to them. Now, there's a difference between saying something and doing something, as we're obviously seeing in the world today. And now his base is starting to be upset. This week, Trump posted a AI-generated image of basically him dressed as Jesus healing somebody. He claimed he thought it was him being a doctor. He complains to people that they are low IQ people and stuff like that. Do you want us to think you're a high IQ person? Any high IQ person would not look at that and say it's a doctor.
Right.
You could show it to anybody. Nobody's going to say it's a doctor. So
now I want to see
mean,
what this is. What would I Google?
I don't know, just Trump Jesus probably. That's going to pop right up. You'll see the picture you put up there.
Oh my God. That's kind of hilarious.
Is that a doctor? Does that look like a doctor?
No, absolutely not. But I get where he was trying to go with curving his.
Well, so part of this, we could say that he has a Jesus complex, and he likes the fact that so many people effectively revere him, worship him, and stuff like that. Now, like I said, I don't like the guy, but we are the ones who've empowered him. If I was going to blame anybody in our government right now, I would say Congress is the one that's failing the people the most.
Right.
The reason we have three branches in our government is so that there are checks and balances. So you don't have a president who can go off the rails. You don't have a Supreme Court that can go off the rails. All these things, they all have purposes to keep each other in check. And at this point in time, I mean, we could take the Iran war as an example. Trump is supposed to ask Congress for permission before going to war, yada, yada, yada. He did it backwards, but you know what? Congress had the opportunity to shut him down, and they didn't. They approved it. So at this point, you can't put all the stuff on Trump. They're giving him the leash.
Mhm.
But spinning it into, as you said, lots of people do put Trump up on a pedestal because he says a lot of the stuff they want to hear. As soon as he gets elected, those things are less important. We've seen things like he ran on the Epstein files. He ran on let's not go into foreign wars. Both of those things haven't worked out. He doesn't want more of the Epstein files to come out. Kind of seems like maybe he started a war over that. Now the war is not working so well. And so now you hear people talking about the Epstein files a little bit. For all we know, he posted this picture of him and Jesus, so we'd start talking about that. But the world is bigger than one person, regardless of how bad somebody might think Trump is or how good someone might think he is. The bigger picture here is that people tend to elevate things around us beyond God. So if we're operating from the perspective we should have no other gods other than the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Fine, but what things are gods? I think money, like you said, is the biggest one because we all chase it, but is there ever going to be enough? You see the billionaires chasing more and more and more money. How could an individual person ever spend $1 billion?
Right.
$1 billion is huge. If you look at $1 billion versus $1 million, it's not even close. It's easiest to kind of picture that in seconds. 1 billion seconds versus a million seconds is the difference between, I'll butcher it, but many, many years difference. It's a
I love how you
major
give
thing.
an analogy and then you don't even know how to make it make sense.
The analogy is true. I just don't want to give fake numbers for the number of years based on, I think it's 1 million seconds. How much time is 1 million seconds compared to 1 billion seconds? And 1 billion seconds is shockingly a high number of years when 1 million is much less.
Right.
So you could do the math, you could look it up, but it's a thing. But how do we spend money? How do we ever determine that we had enough money? You mentioned, okay, I want to be comfortable. I want to have a house. These are kind of vague ideas. Go ahead.
1 million seconds is approximately 11 days and 13 hours long. 1 billion seconds is 31 years, 8 months long. There it is.
All right. So you can see the difference between it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So 1 billion. Then you got these, so take somebody like Musk, who, whatever it's worth this week, but he's worth like $300 billion.
Seriously?
Yeah. The richest guys are worth hundreds of billions of dollars now. Now, I mean, it's not like they have a bank account that is worth 300 billion. They have a lot of stuff tied up in companies and stock and stuff like that. But, maybe these guys have, several million in liquid cash across multiple bank accounts. Then they could start liquidating stocks and things like that. And after that, you got to start selling real estate, like buildings they own and that kind of stuff.
Right.
So money, their net worth is a little bit of a calculated thing. Like Trump, if you go back to when he had to make bail or whatever, and it was some giant number and he had to borrow money. It wasn't that Trump isn't worth what he claims he's worth. I mean, that might be true as well,
It's
but
all tied up in other things.
It's, he has his name on buildings all around the world. Those have value. Those are worth millions of dollars each.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to start selling off buildings in order to get the cash out of them to pay a bill. So he borrowed against his assets. But how do we know we've ever had enough? When do you stop? You mentioned I go on a lot of cruises. Obviously, those are optional type things. But, why are we all just chasing the dollar we have a short period of time here on this planet, call it 70 to 80 some odd years, 70 to 90 years is our range, and Christians believe that we're going to have everlasting life in heaven afterwards. So we have eternity ahead of us. Yet while we're here on earth, we are just scrambling to get more and more resources that set us apart from the people around us. Now, part of it is things that are beyond our control, the price of gas, the price of groceries, milk. You got the Big Mac index where they plot inflation against the cost of a Big Mac, and it's pretty interesting. Well, it aligns. I'm just over the years. But just as normal people, we're always chasing something without a real goal. We just want to make more money. We want more of whatever resources is we're lacking right now. If it's not enough time,
means more stuff.
Well, and even time. So we had to keep pushing this recording, for example, because I've been super swamped this week doing good stuff. It's not like
cranky.
Because of that. True. There was a tax situation with one of my companies, but that's true. I was very cranky about that. I don't get cranky very often. So when I get cranky, it's kind of extra bad because, I don't know, my uncle told me I look scary. Do I look scary?
I mean,
like if you didn't know me.
I've known you for more than half my life. So you kind of have the RBF a little bit.
I mean, so I guess,
he
was just like,
for, right?
yeah, I know it. But is it really that? Can guys have?
Yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
But I don't think I have that. I have something else. I think it's really like my looks like when I went to India recruiting students, they all thought I looked like Big Show, the wrestler. He's a little taller than me, but if you look just at the face, I do have some resemblance to him. So I guess I must look like a tough guy, when you just see my face. And, and I have a very bold, big personality. I run a lot of businesses, so I have a lot of authority. So I tend to lean into that and let people use their imagination about what I might do, what I might think.
So you're intimidating on purpose to, I guess, everybody but me. I'm not intimidated.
Well, should be. Oh yeah, I wouldn't get in a ring with you. You'd beat the crap out of me. But yeah, but what's funny is I guess we're going on the record now, is I'm a big softie. I'm not a violent person at all.
No.
I rarely have a temper, which is why when I get stressed out, it's extra bad because I'm not used to being stressed out, so I don't deal with it very well.
Yeah, you don't stress out. Like, I stress out super easy. You, on the other hand, very rarely are you stressed.
Yeah, I'm generally a pretty just laid back guy. So when life's throwing me all these curveballs, even if it's good stuff, I'm not good at navigating it, I think is what it ends up being. I want to just be in a room by myself, no noises, no distractions, so I can just get stuff done.
Right.
So anyways, how do we know when we have enough? Because we always want more.
Well,
if you have $100,000 in the
you were
bank,
willing to give up everything and just go travel and give up everything and live a normal life. So maybe you have enough.
So that's actually a good point. So I've said to you multiple times, so things get more complicated the more money you get. You get bigger problems. When you might have problems that start being in the $50,000 range, $100,000 range, $1 million range. Those seem like huge problems to certain people, but the more money, the more resources you get, they seem like not that big of a problem. And that feels like that's a problem.
Right.
That 50 grand is so like right now I'm owed from some different sources. So one of the sources is $50,000. That's a lot of money. So this was $50,000 that was supposed to be it was lent in December and was supposed to be paid back near the beginning of January. It was a timing thing, not really they needed the money long-term thing. Well, now we're almost to May and I still haven't gotten it back. Now, things come up. I get it. But it's 50 grand. 50 grand is 50 grand, right? But if I was someone where that's all I had, and all of a sudden I'm out 50 grand, this is like an emergency situation.
Right.
Where for me, it's like, okay, well, this is more of just like a nuisance.
Right.
You know, like the person who borrowed it, I know they're good for the money. You know, I've known them for a long time. Something that was unexpected occurred post borrowing the money. I get it. I'm sure that person is pretty, they're beating themselves up over
Right.
not being able to pay me back. So I'm not concerned about the money eventually. It's more of just the point that I should really be pretty stressed out over someone owing me 50 grand.
There's people that kill for 50 grand.
Exactly.
People rob banks for less than 50 grand.
Exactly. So, doesn't that feel like it's kind of a problem when we start devaluing resources around us just because you have enough that you don't worry about it? If you have enough where you don't worry about it, do you need more? I mean, really? Do I need more?
Yeah,
No.
you got to pay my paycheck.
Oh, right. But I mean, you don't cost very much.
Thanks.
That took a situation of desperation.
Taking advantage of the situation.
Remember, I am 100% Ashkenazi Jew, so I mean, there's something in my blood. I'm able to work the angles. But yeah, I mean, it's a tough thing. I mean, you remember back in 2014, I got rid of all my businesses. I was in a couple of those businesses were in partnership with my family, so that created stresses there. All sorts of stuff. I get along with my family great. Talk to my mom all the time, gone on cruises together. So,
But you still
even
have
that's
a couple. You still have some businesses right now.
Well, that's what's happened is so I sold all my businesses in 2014 with the idea of I'd just become a lowly professor.
See, I didn't know you sold your businesses.
Oh yeah. Well, you
See?
got laid off.
That was last
back...
year.
Huh?
That was last year.
No, that was the second time you were late.
It's happened a couple times.
But it's always when just the business isn't working out or whatever the thing is. But the truth is, back in 2014, I'd looked myself in the mirror. I didn't like who I was becoming because, you start judging yourself against other people based on what your bank account looks like. And people bring different currencies to the table. The world goes around because we're all bringing what we can to the table and we all need each other for different things. You can't just accomplish stuff with just dollars. You might be able to accomplish a lot of stuff with money, but I would suggest that if you're at the point where you feel like you could solve all the problems with money, you probably need to look yourself in the mirror and wonder if you're chasing the dollar too much and you've lost perspective. Because I would say that's the way I felt. Inside, I feel like I'm a decent guy and stuff like that, but I was still chasing a resource that I didn't really need more of. And I wasn't all that excited about the stuff I was doing. I was good at it. Running the software companies, I have that background. I'm good at doing these things. I'm good at the entrepreneurial game. But I don't really enjoy it that much.
That's actually a conversation that I recently had where Nick was like, you could do so much more with your art, with all the different things that you're capable of. I'm not a salesperson. I like to do the creative part. I like to design the things. I like to make the things. I don't want to have to go out and sell the things.
Moment of silence.
If that makes sense.
Because really, sometimes it is
No,
problematic.
it's fun
Now
to
I'm
be
just
calm.
talking to the camera, and did she drop off? She's
Here
here.
I
She's
am.
back. She can
I'm
hear
back.
us. We were talking about you.
Shocker.
It wasn't good.
Shocker. No.
Go ahead. You were talking about
Can you hear me now?
Nick mentioning about your artwork and stuff like that. You gone again? All right. Well, I'm going to keep talking about the money stuff while she figures out her connection stuff on her side.
I'm back again for I don't know how long.
She was having some issues earlier anyways with the connection stuff. But, we so in 2014, I sold my businesses. I didn't like who I was becoming. I was judging myself against other people based on, what my bank account looked like and stuff like that. I was devaluing people around me who brought plenty of stuff to the table, but it wasn't stuff that mattered, something like that. I didn't feel good about myself. And I remember the moment I was on the phone call with my mom in the parking lot of Concordia, and I was telling her all this stuff. And then the next day I just ripped the Band-Aid off. I tend to do that. When I make a decision, I just say, okay, let's just do it and just cut everything off right then and there. And you just recover over the next couple of weeks and that kind of stuff. But my whole goal after that is to simplify my life. I make a nice living as a computer science professor and I run the department and stuff. So it's not like I'm a pauper. I make plenty of money doing my normal day job, and it gives me the flexibility to work this ministry, which I don't view as a business. The ministry is just something that I enjoy doing. And, luckily, Megan and I were able to kind of, I started talking to her about this stuff and she showed interest, and then we just started doing this stuff. But, I fully expect that the ministry is going to cost me money, not make me money, but it's something I enjoy doing. So it's kind of, I don't know, it's not my gift to the world, but my little slice that I can impact.
Well, you
But
know
anyways,
what? This
go ahead.
kind of goes to where you're saying, like, when do you know enough is enough? When you're no longer enjoying what you're doing and you're willing to give up the dollar just to do something that you enjoy doing, that
Mhm.
says a lot, because you're literally spending your own money to do something that you love doing. As
Yeah, but it hasn't been lost on me that some of this money that I'm spending on this is money that I acquired chasing the dollar. It almost feels like dirty money. In a real trust, I haven't done anything horrible, unethical, or anything like that. It was just pure
disclaimer,
pure greed. I go out of my way not to screw people over. If I've done wrong to them, I'll just give them their money back. It's I don't want bad juju.
no bad juju. Knock on
You
wood.
know,
Knock on
right.
something.
But you're right. I've become passionate about the apologetics ministry, and I've always been a lifetime learner where I like learning new things. So being able to apply my background and stuff and kind of seeing God in quantum mechanics, and now with quantum computing, I was able to mess around and do experiments with quantum mechanics, like as an example. And I won't get too quantum-y on you, but this was something that happened a couple of weeks ago.
Was it 700 miles apart?
No, it's not that. It's not that. This is a good one. I don't think you'll
Okay.
be mad. So I am close friends with my neighbors. I met them at church, whatever, 20 years ago now or something like that. And I go over to their house for a dinner every, once a week. We used to do that. They're actually really special people. We had been going to their house. We had been friends with them for a while, but as soon as Tabby was diagnosed almost 4 years ago, obviously that's like a nuclear bomb going off in your life, like, okay, Tabby, I think the viewers have seen this, but, she was diagnosed with stage 4 bladder cancer 3.5 years ago. They gave her 2 years to live. So, my world shattered, but so I had all these people around me who kind of stepped up. They would invite me over for dinner once a week to, they kind of pretended like Tabby, I wasn't getting home cooked meals because my wife was sick. Well, she doesn't cook. Tabby burns water. It's bad. It's terrible. She
Do
can
you
work
cook?
a microwave pretty well.
Do you
Although
cook?
one time Tabby did light a Hot Pocket on fire.
How do you?
It was one of those where you put it into the little sleeve.
Mhm.
And it was supposed to be a minute 10, and apparently she did 11 minutes. And she put it in the microwave. This is when we still lived in Illinois, Macomb, Illinois. And what do you think that my loving wife, the person who I'm spending the rest of my life with, did to me when the Hot Pocket lit on fire in the microwave?
She blamed you for it.
She shoved me into the kitchen as there's smoke billowing out of the microwave. She threw me under the bus so quick, and she watches our podcast, so she's going to see this. It's pretty funny.
You remember my friend Becky, of course.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, she burned ramen noodles by not putting water in it. But so that just kind of reminded me of the same concept.
Oh, well, that's kind of more on the ditzy side of things, though.
I
You're
mean,
not putting water in it, or was it just forgetful?
it's her. I don't know.
Well, so anyways, my neighbors. So their church is there is between pastors. So
Okay.
their pastor in the Lutheran church, and they happen in some other churches, there's this call process where, it's supposed to be a divine call for who's going to be the pastor of a church. And, Hans and I, my neighbor, have had plenty of conversations about this where, I think people are too involved in some of this picking. They used to cast lots for things in the Bible, and there's some legitimate discussion around this as to, how much do we rely on God for related to some of these things. But, the idea is you get the pastor, you want to get him connected with a church where they're going to be able to do the most good. And part of that is, the community they go into, maybe that community needs this person. Well, human beings, we only look like one layer deep. So let's say it's this young person who just came out of the seminary, or even a pastor who's already been a pastor for several years, and we're calling them to switch churches, which my wife does not like. My wife does not like going in when there's a pastor who's already in charge of a church. They're already doing a good job. They've settled in all this stuff, and out of the blue, another church can give them a call to say, "Hey, come be our pastor." It almost feels like in the normal industry, like you're poaching employees.
Right.
Is kind of the feel of the thing, but it's part of the process, and that's fine. I mean, the pastor doesn't have to take it. But what ends up happening is like this happened to us at our previous church several times. Our pastor got a call from some other church. They call it a divine call. So he got a call that said, "Hey, we want to invite you to consider."
Can you
being
call it
pastor."
divine if it's not a call from God?
I like where you're going with this, Megan. That's why we're friends.
Mm-hmm.
So in any case, my wife has previously been upset when our pastor, Pastor Hillenbrand, who was our pastor for 20 years at Beautiful Savior Lutheran Church in Mequon, Wisconsin. He retired. He chose to step down. But leading up to that, her and him had become very close, after her diagnosis and stuff like that. But even before that, they saw the world through similar lenses and that kind of stuff. But every single time he would get a call that he was supposed to be prayerfully considering that call, she would get upset. Why would you even consider uprooting the church? You're the leader of your flock. She didn't like that idea. Well, anyways, my neighbor's church, you know what? Actually, this is going to swing back to the early days. Do you remember Marshall Frisk from the early Awesome Fat days?
No.
Okay, so Marshall was one of our early project managers. He had gotten his degree in computer science. Started off pre-sem at Concordia.
Was this back when you had the office building?
Yeah.
That I used to go stock and okay.
But anyways, so Marshall ended up going to seminary, becoming a pastor. So he had been the pastor at this church for 7 years. Marshall used to work for one of my earlier companies. He lived with me as well during his last year of school when he was getting ready to get married to his now wife, Calissa.
Keep in mind, this is how many times I've been laid off, because that was like 2008.
Yes, that's true. So in any case, Marshall had been the pastor there for a while, and he got called to another church and took that call. So now they are between pastors at their church, and they have like this fill-in pastor who comes in, and they actually really, really like that guy.
But so is that like a substitute teacher concept?
Yeah. And they actually want their substitute teacher, their substitute pastor, they want him to take the full-time job. Apparently they really like.
Okay.
Which is super lucky, because a lot of times that can be kind of hit and miss. And it's not that they're bad pastors, they're just temporary, so you don't want to get too attached to them. But in any case, Hans and I once again had this discussion about the call process, and I thought, they're getting ready to give a call to 3 different people. The church community debates this. You have a whole bunch of humans deciding who would be a good fit. We're pulling them from their church, blah, blah, blah. I'm thinking, well, what if the humans think a certain pastor is not a good fit for a certain community, yet God wants that pastor there not for him, but maybe his son is going to have an impact on that community, or his grandson is going to have an impact on that community. These are things that humans can't see past, right? But maybe God has bigger plans and we're just getting in the way. Now, I believe God can circumvent that and make sure the things that he thinks needs to happen still will happen. So it kind of becomes a ye of little faith situation. But I was talking to Hans. I'm thinking, you know what? Why don't we just literally roll the dice and pick a random number? Where you basically say, okay, in this particular case, they had like 3 pastors they're choosing between. So I'm like, okay, well, let's just pick one of the pastors out of a hat. kind of thing. But how do we remove human beings from the process? Because you could flip a coin or whatever. Well, humans still doing it. Pick a hat, we'll thing out a hat, we're mixing it up. We could still cheat the process. So
Let me
what I
guess, you
did is
created a software.
I created a little program that ran on one of IBM's quantum computers
Oh, did
that
I know?
generated a random number to pick one of these pastors, but it's done using stuff that is not under the control of humans. So without getting into quantum mechanics, it is using probabilities that exist outside of the realm in which we exist in. That's kind of the punchline. So
Okay.
anyways, humans were not involved in this random number. Now, here's where it gets creepy. And I am not kidding about this at all. So I ran the first one, picked one of the pastors. It's like, okay, well, let's do it again, just in case, ran it again. Now, keep in mind, it's only picking a number between 1 and 3. All right. Like not big numbers. So I ran it again, still picked a 1, still picked the same guy, ran it again, picked the same guy. Then I said, okay, this one doesn't count. I said that out loud. I ran it again, it picked a 3. Then I said, okay, this one counts again. Ran it again, it picked a 1. I'm saying these out loud. So then I'm like, okay, I'm not supposed to test God. This is getting a little creepy. So I stopped doing the experiment, but it felt like you almost felt like something was going on there, and like not
Right.
poke the bear. So anyways, I sent that over to my neighbor, and so we're going to see how it shakes out with who they finally get as their new pastor to see if quantum picked the right person. So that's always a debate for us, but at this point we're I'm not sure that, Einstein had the famous God doesn't play dice with the universe or something like that, something along those lines. But so we're not supposed to test God, but this was kind of a pretty cool thing.
Right. So when they pick number 1, you're gonna be like, all right.
Well, but here's the thing. So now they voted as a church, and the originally I want to say the guy there was 3 of them, and it took 1 vote. And then that there wasn't a clear winner from that 1 vote. I guess you have to have a certain amount of whatever.
Sounds like an
So they had
election.
Yeah, so I think it's almost like what they do when they pick a pope, where I think
Okay.
they take a vote and then they, from there, they whittle it down and they take somebody, the low people out. So then the other people get to vote a different direction. If you voted for A and A's no longer in there, now you get to choose B or C or whatever.
Got it.
So they actually ended up extending the call to somebody different, not the person, because the guy who they extended the call to got the extra votes from the last place person from the first vote, which put him back in the lead.
Okay.
But here's what's interesting. So just because they call someone, this is not the first person they've called, because the previous person they called, it was a failed call. They rejected it. They decided they're staying where they're at. So I'm excited to see if this person still ultimately becomes their pastor. And so the jury's still out. I'm not sure the outcome necessarily matters, because we don't know whether God's random numbers are meant to be used in this way. Maybe human discernment is part of how the process should work. It just, I think, kind of like you said, though, if, how can you call it divine if you're trying to circumvent God? So, yeah. So in any case, I don't know how I got down that path, but it was a cool use of quantum, and I don't know, we'll just call that a fun story. But
You'll have to update me when the results come in.
I will. I'll update the audience too. So I look at myself recently. So we kind of talked about the past, and we mentioned that, we've been really busy, or I've been really busy. Well, you've been busy too. We've all been really busy.
Mhm.
Now, I've found myself recently working on several projects that kind of fell in my lap, but have large dollar amounts associated with them. So I kind of have found myself falling into past, mentalities where I'm thinking, oh, well, this is worth, millions of dollars here, millions of dollars there. Now, the good news for me is I actually am enjoying doing the stuff I'm doing for it, but I've
But
had
on
to
a
keep
side
giving myself
note,
pep talks. Go ahead.
on a side note, though, you can't necessarily say it's fully gone into the old ways, because a lot of that you've talked about investing more in the ministry, which is nonprofit. It's
Oh, sure.
just out of your pocket. So the fact that you may have opportunities for however much money, but you're not looking at it in a selfish way. You're looking at it as you're giving back to this cause.
Well, right. But that's part of navigating this. So I have found myself letting my mind wander, starting to think about the dollar, starting to think about these other things. And keep in mind, I'm someone who, by any person's measure would say, okay, this guy has enough money. But how do you ever decide what's enough? Because when you have more, you end up spending more. You're no
Well, and
longer
you
in the
help a lot
inside
of
room.
people.
Well, that's fine. So I mean, but we're still all miserable sinners, and we
Yeah.
still have greed. Every
Right.
one of us is
Right.
greedy for something. But I found myself starting to think about the dollars, and then I get, then I have to give myself a little pep talk. The reason you're doing this isn't for the money. The reason you're doing this, God and heaven and eternal life and release from this crummy world that we live in, that we see going to hell and all this stuff. There's so much great stuff out there that when you think about it for a second, that's worth way more than money. Yet we so easily get pulled back in. So isn't this a good example? I wouldn't buy anything new with that money because I can buy whatever I want now. So why is the money even important? And every single time I stop and I think about it, I convince myself that that's not, and it's true. That's not the reason I'm doing it. I'm doing it because biggest reason is I want to help my uncle. He's family, right? And I'm not going to profit off of family. I'll take a cut of something, but I'm not going to take money from family for something that I can do to help them.
Right.
Without me spending money. So in any case, it really kind of challenged me because, in my head, I kind of thought that part of my life was sort of behind me. And part of it is I haven't really sought new opportunities. Like you mentioned, after I sold my businesses in 2014, I've kind of accidentally gotten involved with new businesses. I own a pontoon company that I fund, and my partner runs the business. Well, I have run a construction equipment, and none of these things make any sense. It was just, hey, I've invested in these things. I've invested in some cancer stuff. I'm involved in a startup that deals with AI applied to clinical trials for cancer. That's more of a thing that's close to me, since the drug that's kept Tabby alive is a drug that was in clinical trials when she first was diagnosed. So, the fact that she's outlived her expiration date is probably because of a drug that came out of clinical trials. In fact, she's over there getting juiced right now. Today was a treatment. Today was a treatment only day. I go with her or whatever. We have to meet with the oncologist or whatever. So that's a close thing to me, but that's a company that could be worth many, many hundreds of millions if we sell it to someone else. I keep accidentally getting sucked back into these things.
Oh,
and
you
then what I
poor
do
thing.
But I tell you, it is a problem, because what happens, you see a good idea, you want to get involved. And because I've been doing these things so long, people seek me out for help in organizing the businesses or coming up with the ideas or with the software, whatever it is. And then I usually spin it off into one of my former grad students or something. And then I try to take a step back, keeping a small equity position, but I'm not a day-to-day person. But it's hard to do that. It's hard to, when you see the dollar signs and say, oh, well, I'm a 50% partner in this. Well, you're a 50% partner in something that won't make any money if they're relying on you to do all the legwork, me to do all the legwork, because I don't want to do the legwork. It's not something I'm passionate about. It's not. So I'd be much better off giving that equity to somebody else who's going to have the rubber meet the road. And I can step back and take my little chunk, because now the business has a chance of taking off, of being successful and things like that. But it's like I keep praying for my life to get simpler, yet it doesn't.
Right.
And I think we all kind of can see that. It's not just a dollar thing. It's just when you get out of something that's going on in your life and you feel like, okay, I have a fresh start. I finally have a breather. Something else seems to swoop in and
When it rains, it
whatever.
pours. Story of my life.
So how do we know when we have enough money?
I don't have that problem.
Well, but before you couldn't say, you said, well, I just want to be comfortable. How much money does it take to be comfortable?
I'll tell you, when I'm living in a house, not an apartment, and
well, just foreshadow it. Let's assume that you could snap your fingers today, and you could say, okay, if I was bringing in this amount of money per month, I could live comfortably. And even though my human nature might still be such that I'm chasing more money, I couldn't say that I need more money. So I'm kind of fishing for, where's that line in the sand where you can say, I don't need more money to maintain the lifestyle that I feel is appropriate. You don't have to live lavishly, but you want to have enough to be able to do the things you do. Like all these cruises, I probably wouldn't go on them if my wife wasn't around. These are things. I mean, I enjoy going on them with her, but we mostly go on them for her. She enjoys watching the ocean go by. Thank God we have the resources to do this. So I get my happiness by seeing her happy, and it also gives us an opportunity to escape all the hustle and bustle of regular life so that her and I can spend more time together,
Which
'Cause
isn't
now-
necessarily true, because you're still hustling and bustling at the bar on your laptop.
But we come together for meals every single
Oh,
meal.
I know that. I'm saying you
But
don't
I
stop
don't
the
here.
hustle and bustle.
And that's fine. You're right. But we still I kind of have deadlines, and also when I'm away, I can kind of pick and choose which things I want to make important. So I pick the ones that are fun. But you're right. I sit there with my laptop at the bar because I'm not into all the beachy stuff and things like that. I might go to the pool or hit the hot tubs, and then after that,
You're
I'm at the
still
bar.
working inside the pool. You
That's true.
literally remoted into my computer from the swimming pool.
That is true. But I enjoy those things. I enjoy problem solving and that kind of stuff. But the point is that Tabby and we come together for meals every single day. We go to a show every night. I don't like the shows, but I like being there with her, but so it kind of puts into perspective the things that are important to you.
Well,
Because
and you're
when I'm
making a lot
home-
more memories because you don't know how much time you have left.
Oh, that's it. But why does it have to take a cruise to do that when we get pulled in so many directions in our regular lives?
Because that's what
You
she
know?
enjoys doing.
Well, I'm just saying, like for instance, here, like the last several days, I've been really swamped. So, like yesterday, I didn't eat until 8 o'clock at night.
Hot Pocket?
But
Hot Pocket?
yeah, no hot pockets. I didn't have Tabby make me a hot pocket. I wanted her to burn down the house. But she, I've been trying to like text her and say, hey, what time are you gonna eat, so I can try to plan around it and make it so that I can go up and we can at least sit together while we're eating or
Well,
whatever.
who cooks?
Because
If she doesn't cook, then who cooks?
if I'm cooking, I cook my own stuff. She does. Her and I don't even eat the same stuff. She eats very bland stuff. Not, she doesn't like a lot of seasoning, no garlic. She can't have garlic. She can't have tomatoes. There's all these things she can't have, because of cancer. Then she's a picky eater on top of that. So there's all sorts of stuff she just won't have.
And this coming from a long distance competitive eater who probably is not very picky at all.
Oh my gosh. In fact, I'm so not picky that when I go into the grocery store, now she's been trained to do this too. She's very proud of her. She's gotten good at it. When I go into the grocery store, I look for the red sale tags. I don't know what I'm there to buy. I wander around until I start finding the stuff that's 75% off, the stuff that's about to turn. So
Okay.
like a lot of times they have like the potato salad 75% off.
Oh, yep. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So, I'll eat on 75% off potato salad for 2 weeks.
Mm.
It's really bad. Some of the stuff, Tabby's had to call me off a couple of meals before because she's noticed something growing in what I'm about
Oh
to
my
eat.
God. That
It's
is
really bad.
horrible. And you know what? This is coming from someone who has enough money to buy the one that was made 5 seconds ago.
Yeah, but what good is that? This is perfectly good potato salad.
It's okay. I love potato salad. I'm like the
Once-
least picky eater ever. The only thing I won't eat is like random animals that I like the normal things like pigs, chickens, cows.
Oh, okay. Like,
If
so you like not rattlesnake or
Correct.
leeches or
Not going to happen.
Yeah, see, I'll eat all that stuff.
No.
Whenever I go to a restaurant that's like a, non-American food, I'll order whatever the weirdest thing on the menu is.
Couldn't do it.
I'm not even kidding. I was at this convention thing one time. We went to this Chinese restaurant. They had their special menu that wasn't in English, and their house specialty was fried pig anus.
Oh my God.
kidding.
And you ordered this.
Yeah, it was actually pretty decent.
I could make so many jokes on this, which I probably will. At some
Hey,
point.
you're preaching to the choir here, but it was up in Minneapolis, St. Paul. I don't know where the exact restaurant was. One of the people took us there, but yeah, I mean, I order whatever the weirdest thing is.
No, thank you.
Yeah, but so to your point though, I could buy the new stuff if I want to, but it's almost like a sport for me. I like going in and seeing what I can come out
Get
with.
expired pig anus.
Well, wasn't expired. Well, another time I was at that same grocery store, I had a bunch of 75% off stuff, and then I had this lunch meat that was 75% off, but it wouldn't scan, and it was because it was already expired. So I asked the person about it, and they came over and I said, "Well, are you just going to throw that out?" And they said, "Yeah." So I took it, threw it in my bag. That was that day's lunch and the next day's lunch.
Oh my gosh. Now, how long has it been since you've done any competitive eating?
Oh, years and years and years. Probably somewhere in that 2014 time
Okay.
period. Yeah, I can't eat that much anymore.
Well,
I'm
didn't you
has
break
been.
a rib or something doing that
Oh
once?
yeah,
Or you just
I have
okay.
this, like, always call it something on the top of my stomach. I think is ruptured or something. I get If I eat too much, I start getting I call it my dot.
Your
Something
dot.
inside me is not feeling right.
Got it.
I kind of imagine that stuff is pushing out of the top of my stomach or
Oh my
something.
gosh.
Who even knows? Yeah, but I mean, so anyways, this is something that, I think it's important for us to all think about, like, what do we worship in our lives that's keeping us from focusing on, from our perspective, focusing on God. There's so many things that distract us from, what if you knew for a fact that God is real? Jesus died for our sins so we can get to heaven, and that 100% when we kick the bucket, we are going to heaven. If we knew that for a fact, how important would these things on earth really be?
Right?
Yet I'm sitting here saying that I'm a faithful Christian. I'm 99.999% confident in that when I die, I'm going to go to heaven. I'm going to be with Jesus, all these things. And I would pass a lie detector test. I'm positive of it. Yet I still get pulled into, what can I do to make life better while I'm here? More money, more this, more that. Why? It's frustrating, that, it's almost like lately I've been feeling kind of almost original sin. Like it's something I can't control, yet I'm noticing it when it's happening. Your mind starts wandering towards this or that, it's wandering towards these big dollar numbers when very quickly I'm like, well, what would I do with it? You asked me, what's the first thing I'd buy? Nothing. I just deposit it into an account. In fact, the problem it would create is you really can't keep more than like $250,000 or $300,000 in any single account. Otherwise, it's not FDIC insured. So you'd be keeping it at potential risk. You could put it into investments or whatever, but having too much money becomes an organizational problem. These are stupid
See,
things.
I wouldn't know those things.
Yeah. So, but why? If I'm so confident that so I'm 48 now. So if I'm so confident that in the next 30 to 40 years, let's say, I'm kicking the bucket, and the way I've lived my life, probably more like 20 to 30 years, I put all
You're
sorts
gonna
of stuff.
outlive me.
I bet you I do. I
bet you
take
do.
after my grandpa's side. On my mom's side, he did not eat very healthy. Yet I think he was almost 90, late 80s when he died.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he had no reason to live that long. It's just good genetics, I think. So, I'm a big guy. They keep, well, you struggle with diabetes. They keep assuming I'm going to have diabetes. I don't.
How you don't is beyond
I
me.
know. Doctors, same way. Yeah. How do you not have this? My blood sugar is just fine.
That's crazy.
Like, do I watch my diet? Oh, not at all. I put expired food in there. I eat
No
fried
kidding.
stuff. I eat bacon. I drink alcohol.
Pig butt.
Yeah, I mean, I do not live like a extra healthy lifestyle or anything like
Right.
that. Yeah. Who knows? But so how do you think we get that answer? How do you come up with your answer of what's enough money? How do I come up with my answer of where's the line in the sand that allows me how do I find out what's enough? I already know I have too much. So if we back up and say, well, what was enough? How do we find that number?
Right. I don't know.
So maybe that's something. If we can get some people to comment, we haven't had a lot of comments. If we can get some people to comment as to what is their mechanism for finding that number, or how do they find peace in what they already have? We should be thankful for what we have, regardless of what we have. The fact that, we wake up every single day and we have, some nice weather, although we've had tornadoes and crap recently.
Nice weather. We had like a 30-inch blizzard like 2 weeks ago. Then we ended up with 80 degrees and now it's back down to nothing. Down to
Did you have
40.
the storms the last couple nights?
But yeah, the roads, like literally a mile or two down the road, the streets are collapsed and caved
from
in.
the flooding.
And, yeah, the flooding collapsed.
Did you have the
roadways
tornadoes?
And no, we didn't
Did you
get
have-
tornadoes.
Oh,
we
because
got the flooding.
I think 2 of the last 3 nights, we've had the tornado sirens going off, the warnings coming to the phone, like the loud ones that take over the emergency thing. We live in Wisconsin. We're not supposed to have tornadoes.
I know. No, literally,
So,
there's streets all over my neighborhood
believe it.
and close around. I don't know if you've seen any of the pictures online from Green Bay. Like, there's
Yeah, I
actual
haven't.
roads missing chunks with cars floating
Oh my
down.
gosh. I know we have a flash flood warning for the next several days, but I don't know the details of that. I've been so busy that I've forgotten the reality around me. That's how bad it is.
When I pull out of the parking lot, if I go right, I can't go right because the road, it looks like if there's any pressure on it, like the road's going to collapse. So you got to go around. That's how bad. Yeah.
So maybe we get some comments from the folks as to how we navigate this as humans, because I feel we all struggle with it. Whether you're a devout Christian or you're someone who is atheist or agnostic. I mean, there's so much temptation in the world around us from things other than just dollars. So how do we push back against that temptation and realize that we have enough? I don't know, something for us to consider, because there's a parable, and I won't go into it now because we're already over time. But
look at me. I let you go over time, and I kept going with you.
I know, well, it's because you love me, or tolerate me, actually.
And maybe a little both.
Because I think Tabby loves me but doesn't tolerate me. I think you tolerate me.
Happy medium.
Well, yeah. Could you imagine living with? I mean, Tabby and I were married 25 years last May, so it'll be 26 coming up. And we've been together almost 29 years, I think. Can you imagine what she's been through dealing with me for that long?
A lot.
Terrible. Yeah. So hopefully we can get some comments, but there is a parable from Jesus that says it's difficult for the rich man to get to heaven. And I think it is. When you're so focused on getting more and more and more, you end up forgetting that you have everything you need in God. But also, you end up forgetting that you even need God at all, because you think you can do everything yourself.
And turn around right back to the First Commandment.
Yep. All right. Well, so subscribe, all the stuff. What else? What am I forgetting? What do they need to do?
Hit like, subscribe, follow. Come back next week. We'll see you then.
All right. Take care.
Thank you for watching. Hit that like and subscribe so you never miss a new episode.
See you next time, everybody.